Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well. I certainly am not, but wherever you are in Middle-earth. I am joined by my boy, Mr. Royan, once more for episode 7 of season 2 of this one Lord of the Rings show that's come out. Lord of the Rings is... It's funny that they call it that.
Episode
I don't know why they do.
7, Doomed to Die.
Yeah. So, I need to peel myself off Twitter.
Release
I've been on there.
your mind, my friend. We will.
Okay, we'll jump into it. Like, I've just been trying to process it for like an hour.
How do we even want to start? Do we want to go by storyline? Most of it is Regan, right? So maybe we touch on some of the things that weren't Regan.
Well, let's do it as we've always done it. Let's go good and then bad.
Okay.
There are 2 good things that I have on my list.
Let's hear it.
2.
Let's hear it.
Actually seeing the forging of the rings was cool. I kind of liked seeing the process there at the beginning, right? Celebrimbor doing his thing. I never mean to be disrespectful to like the people a part of the project or the actors or anything, because you know at the end of the day we're all just human beings trying our best. And so the Celebrimbor actor,
oh my,
I really like him, but he's such a hobbit, you know. Like
he looks like
him watching.
He does look
him
like
watching the little mouse and stuff. I'm just like, dude, you're just a hobbit.
I mean,
but,
to be fair,
that's okay.
to be fair, elves do have a kindred with animals. All right, so I think
but he's just like it was in his face.
I think that scene,
it was just in his face.
Yeah, I think that scene could have been a lot. There's a lot of scenes that could have been improved with a lot of changes. Yeah.
And then, so I liked that first scene, honestly, and where he's kind of starting to piece things together was kind of cool. Again, a bit different, quite different than how they did the deception in the lore. But, yeah, I mean, how the show actually set it up. And I was talking to my friend Matt from Nerd of the Rings about this earlier. It's like, yeah, actually, how they set up the Anatar Celebrimbor, very different than the lore. But for what it was in the show, actually worked a lot. You go from, like, this friendship to this mentorship kind of relationship, and then to more or less a Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing. And just seeing that evolution of the characters and Celebrimbor trying to free himself through this episode, pulls like an Eren Yeager, just like, you know, cuts his finger off to get out of the shackles, like pretty brutal stuff. But Celebrimbor was good, man, and Anatar was pretty good. And so just I would say that, and then finally the Meshuggah at the end with that last song was sick. That was sick. I heard that before the season dropped, right? They released the song, which was pretty cool. Pretty good stuff. But yeah, Royan, do you have any other good things?
Okay, I just gotta say it. All right. Spoiler. The Arondir. I gotta be honest. Team. First of all, Arondir. Anytime Arondir is on screen, the show just becomes more believable. He is such a quality, pristine, perfect elf. All right, and
yeah,
it's not just that he's really good on screen. Anytime there's another character in the scene with him, they also become more believable. We have Galadriel, who we will talk about when it comes to the things that were bad in this episode. Suddenly feel like a real character. Like, actually kind of almost herself in a lot of ways that we know from the lore when Arondir's on screen with her. And then
I thought about that too, yeah.
And then, of course, he gets separated again and Galadriel's off doing her old thing. And I gotta be honest, when Arondir, died heroically, spoiler, I did. I audibly went, no.
Me too.
Was it because the scene was good, or because I feel like I'm losing the one thing I like about the show? I still don't have that answer.
I'll say too. Believable in a Lord of the Rings way, yes. I will say he's got some Jedi physics, but that's fine. We love
so does
our elven Jedi. Yeah, I was gonna say. So realistic maybe isn't the word I'd use, but epic Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I would.
So yeah, maybe not his fighting style.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call that realistic, but like the way that he moves feels elvish. The way that he interacts with people feels elvish. The way that none of the other elves in the show feel, he feels elvish. I don't know. It's again.
Oh, yeah. I would say if he actually is dead, because there's part of me that's like, maybe he'll, like, recover. Maybe he'll be fine. We'll see. But, yeah, I also think, man, you were too good for this show. So that's okay that they took you out because, man...
Well, let's be clear. He may not actually be dead.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's dead until their like body is burned, and even then, sometimes.
Yeah.
Let me think. Other things.
A couple battle moments were cool. I'll get into this more later, but Gil-galad's so useless, except for that one scene where he's absolutely not, and he's killing it with Aiglos with the spear.
There was one scene with Gil-galad and Aiglos that I was like, "Who is this man? This ain't my Wendy's manager." In a good way.
Yeah. This is when the Wendy's manager comes to the front and actually starts helping take orders, and you're like, What? He's competent? Wait.
It's more like this is he transformed into Waffle House manager mode where he's just out there beating the hordes back. Literally.
Helping his people, right? Helping his people. So that was cool. Design. Okay, I will say the music was really, really underrepresented in this episode. I love Bear McCreary.
Where was
listening to some of his God of War stuff. Yeah, where was it? Like,
not
because
present.
what is there is pretty good, but man, they just didn't let him. I feel like with the whole show, I don't know, they just didn't let him vibe, because I've heard him vibe with God of War, and that is I love the God of War soundtrack. The Rings of Power soundtrack is mid at best. It is middle of the road, and average YouTube,
and it's not even there.
Ambience.
It's not present.
It's not even there. Yeah,
It
goes away at so many times. So it's
so
funny
many scenes where you're like, "What's missing from this?" Usually, it's soundtrack, and yeah, I don't know. Ugh.
Yeah, it's like a criticism as well, but I'm just saying I want more of him because he is good. He is a great composer, and his stuff is really good. And then the visuals, again, never a complaint. Well, okay, actually, I do have one complaint about the visuals this whole time, but everything else was great. That last scene, Royan, did Adar's face look weird to you?
I was going to say the exact same thing. I was like, is Adar, like, there has to be, I found the reason why Adar is only ever in a dark room or at night. And it's because the CGI to make his face working in the day doesn't work.
I thought it was all prosthetics before, so the CGI has been really good.
If it is prosthetics, then I don't know what happened. Adar looked really whack in that very last scene. In his most important scene, he looked whack.
Yeah,
I don't have the answers for why specifically. I don't know. I have many wild crackpot theories with exactly zero evidence to back up any of it, but.
So okay, this is good
Before you have more good things. Okay, never mind. You keep going.
That was gonna wrap
okay,
up the good
last
things.
good thing.
You have another?
No hobbits, no halflings, no Harfoots, no stores, and no stranger, no Tom Bombadil.
Yep, always a good time
omission.
Without them.
Just by omission, the episode had a chance, but man.
Next episode, that means we know.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking as the episode kept going on, I was like, did next episode die so that this one could have a chance to live, and it still coughs it up? Like, I don't
know. Yeah, exactly. So okay, before we get into all of it, I did hear, so my title and everything, a lot of it's in caps, I will admit, everything like that. I'm gonna rant a bit in this. I'm trying to not come into this super, I mean, that was one of my goals for myself before the season even started. Don't come raging, don't come in just like hot-headed and just ready to go, because just take a breath, take a moment. So I really have before I did this review and everything. So I'm gonna try to be cool and collected, but also I had a chance to kind of prepare for this happening because one of my friends has seen some of the leaks for this, for the season, and he warned me about that ahead of time. And so I believed him, all right? And I was like, this is probably going to come down the pipe at some point, right? And we'll address it when it does. And it did, right? And so I'm going to just try to be measured and everything.
Can you explain the elephant into the room to those who haven't seen the show? Because I know there are viewers of us that don't watch the show, that don't consume any of the content. They have no idea what's going on. It feels like you're mentioning a very specific moment. Why don't you just drop it for the crowd here?
And it's in the title too of the video. It will be in the title. So
I can't see
Elrond makes out with Galadriel, kisses Galadriel, his future mother-in-law. Right. So the title of this video is "Don't Kiss Your Future Mother-in-Law, Elrond." Overall, Rings of Power is trash. Right. Overall, ROP is trash is what I'm going to put in there at the end, because it is. This is terrible. This is horrible, because what it is it's a confirmation of every criticism that has ever been given to the show, in that this is not Lord of the Rings. This is carrying its husk around and parading its body as its own real show and performance. This is not Lord of the Rings. Absolutely not. And the only reason I'm reviewing it is because it calls itself that. If it didn't, if it just gave up that title and said it was something else entirely, I wouldn't, right? And I'll be honest, I was kind of getting after it, and one of my friends on Twitter, one that I've done actually podcast before a couple years ago with, Helen, clueless fangirl. She was criticizing this, and I backed her up with this. This is not good. And my last tweet that I sent out before starting this was a picture of the books, and I said someone should show the Rings of Power showrunners these. I think they'd be impressed. May help them find some material to adapt. I'll be honest, I don't know what this is. I don't know what they thought they were doing. I don't know what they think they're doing. I don't know if they've ever read The Lord of the Rings before, or even watched the movies, for that matter. Do they know what that is?
They have to, because they keep trying to drop. They keep trying to drop references every other line.
but there's also AI, and so I'm wondering. I'm not saying they're using it, but there's also Google. They could just be like, "What's a deep lore reference in?" I guess Lord of the Rings. They have to know the title at least, right? In Lord of the Rings, and they could just be like, "Oh, cool. Oh, they mention Meli and the Maya? Cool, we'll just throw that in. Okay, cool, they mention Eärendil in this episode. Yeah, we'll throw that in there. Cool. Yeah, sweet. I don't know who these people are, but I'm just going to use them. That's what it feels like. And so this whole show is a joke, right? And what they're doing, it's Rings of Power, in my opinion, and this is the thing. This is the thing. I haven't been saying this every single review. I've been nice. 2 episodes ago, Royan and I were singing its praises, and it was a good episode. It really was. But this is just confirmation that they don't give any care about the lore. They don't care one bit about what Tolkien, if they even know who Tolkien is, what Tolkien wrote, who his characters are, or what's going on. Now, here's the common defense of this scene. Well, Elrond was trying to pass a lockpick to Galadriel, so he had to come up with some kind of cover. Really? This isn't a spy movie. This isn't one of those things. Why didn't we ever see something like that in Peter Jackson's films then? If they do it so commonly in Middle-earth. Why don't we ever see that in the books? Oh, right, because it is kind of weird to make out with your mother-in-law, your future mother-in-law. Maybe not for Elrond, but it's weird. Weird to do this to your own characters. And again, it's because it's not their characters. They don't care. They just want the money. I'm just kind of giving into it. It's Rings of Power sucks. This show absolutely sucks. They don't care about the characters. They don't care about the story. They don't care about Tolkien and trying to uphold his legacy and all that. Something I've tried to do on my channel since it started for 10 years almost. And so it's very upsetting. And so I'm just going to roast this show. Just go I'm going to try to approach it in a light, funny way. Still point out the good scenes when they come along, because there are. I'm not going to say this erases every single good scene, because it doesn't. But what it does is it just stabs through the idea that they actually care about the Lord of the Rings, because they just don't. They don't care about something that I've loved for all my life, as far as I can remember. And so many of us, not just... This isn't about me. This is about us as Tolkien fans. And so that is tough to see on screen. And especially when I've been kind of defending parts of the show. Because, again, parts are good. Arondir is good and all of that kind of stuff. Parts seem Tolkienian in theme. And then they just go and they ruin it. And also, I think part of me is a little reserved on this compared to maybe parts in Season 1, because Season 1 happened. I didn't come into season 2 being like, they'll literally fix every problem. It'll be super close to the lore now. I thought maybe it'll be better. And overall, before this episode, it was better. But honestly, after this episode, I'm like, I can't tell if season 2 is better or worse than 1. Because it's not Lord of the Rings. It's just some random show that's throwing crap out there and seeing what sticks. So in season 1, they did the mithril thing with the Balrog and all that, and had Durin lie about the table, which was the solid stone of our grandfather. No, he's just stealing an elven table for whatever reason. They've had weird moments, but this I'm just like, if you watch The Lord of the Rings, you would know Galadriel and Elrond are friends. You might not know that Celebrian, he married her daughter. But again, Google exists. You can talk to ChatGPT and be like, what's Elrond's relationship to Galadriel? And it would tell you, he's her son-in-law. And you'd be like, whoa, I'm doing research. But I feel like no writer or showrunner has really done that thus far on Rings of Power. And so that's my problem with it. You know, I can get into the Adar issue again, because Adar presents, again, a bigger problem for me in this show, in this episode. This really needs to be against Sauron. They all knew Sauron was in Eregion this whole season, and now they're like, oh my gosh, we couldn't get here fast enough. Adar's attacking. What are we going to do? All the elves are dying. I'm like, you guys knew. You knew this whole time that that Galadriel reported that Sauron was in Eregion. You didn't do anything about it. You didn't do anything. So this show is just, again, the writing's a joke. The adaptation parts of it is a joke. The fact that it's The Lord of the Rings, I think, is theft. I think they're just stealing that name just to get money. What do you think, Ryan?
Well, working off of that, so I have to be completely honest. I did not have the same sort of reaction as you did to the episode. I want to be very clear about this. This episode was bad. I want to be very clear about this. This episode was, in fact, bad. And I'm not specifically sure why for me. Maybe I'm just tired at this point, right? But it was just a bad episode. There's a lot of poor decisions, meaningless decisions that added nothing to the show, but were just dumb, right? So all season, there are two things that are true. One is that Galadriel is like this world's least favorite person. Not one person in this show is like pro Galadriel at any moment. Every scene this season, every single scene this season, Elrond has looked at Galadriel and gone like, wow, I cannot believe what you stand for. You are doing such stupid things. You are being foolish and petulant. You're such a little girl. Then in this scene, it's like, yo, give me a smooch. Like, what? What's going on? Also, Elrond, my guy, for somebody who's like talking so much trash about Galadriel for getting fooled by Sauron, bro, you're getting fooled by everybody. And I'm not even talking about the dwarf
dumb.
thing. I'm talking he's like, oh, dude, it'd be very foolish of me to bring the ring here. And so I'll bring it to the battle. Don't worry about that though. What?
Do you think he believed Adar and he was like, I'm going to bring it to the battle because I'm probably going to have to surrender? Probably not, because literally every other action in the whole episode said that wasn't what his belief was. He believed Durin was going to come.
Also, like, if he was gonna surrender, Elrond has like screw every other elf, I guess, but Galadriel. Also, there's just so many weird decisions that make everything they cheapen great moments. I just talked about this great moment with Arondir and Galadriel, right? Where Galadriel reaches out, has a tender moment of like, these heroes, they don't need to die. Like so many elven heroes are dying. Just keep one more alive. The scene before this, Galadriel's like, yo, Elrond, you should have just killed me. You should have just killed me and run the whole thing, run the whole camp over and all that. And also, the show does a lot of telling and not showing when it comes to this battle, right? So one of the things I have down in my notes here is in Peter Jackson's, right? They show you how hopeless these battles are. They show you how hopeless, the stand at Pelennor Fields was. How hopeless everything was, just by having. They didn't have a character sit there and tell us like they have us 10-1. What are we gonna do? they show you the hordes of orcs. They show you the light in the random, extras' eyes dying. You go to Helm's Deep and you see just the thick depression that is all over everybody in the scene. Yep. And in Rings of Power, we don't get to see that. And is the answer budget? I hope not, because I remember reporting this is like the most expensive show ever made, or some crazy number. So
budget should not be an issue based on what we've heard about this show. And also, it's like, I mean, they show all of that in the Lord of the Rings at a grand scale and everything like that. But also, I mean, there was that one slow-mo motion of that friend of Elrond getting shot by arrows, and I'm like, I don't even know who that is.
Yeah,
but
that's
in the
other
movies,
thing. They struggle to make me care about people, and so I don't. Like,
I literally don't. I don't know who they are.
Slow-mo moments that would have Bear McCreary if somebody was paying attention, but they still don't. So it's just a slow-mo falling down scene of a character that probably has a name, but I don't remember it. All right, so we have the random archer elf. We have we have Mirandia. It's like
you have Mirandia died in such a fun. I laughed when she went off the wall. I was like, what?
I laughed because earlier. So I did not. I knew nothing of the leaks. I knew that they were there. I knew nothing of the leaked content. I specifically just didn't care enough to look it up. But so I remember reporting, and I think episode 3 or 4, that, or like in the recording, I was like, maybe it's not this Galadriel Elrond kiss that we're all worried about. Maybe it's this Sauron and this random chick. And let me tell you, dude, they were cooking something there, because every time they're in the scene together, he's touching her, and she's like opening herself to it. I'm like, get your hands off her. But anyways, no, clearly not, because she got, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely got. And, I mean, I will say, like, too, again, comparing it to Peter Jackson, like, when you see the hordes of orcs, you're like, somebody's going. And I don't want it to be Theoden. And I don't want it to be Éowyn. I don't want it to be Éomer. I don't want it to be Merry. They're all about to run down these orcs outside of Minas Tirith. Oh, my gosh. Who's it? Oh, it's going to be somebody. They can't all survive this. And then you're kind of waiting with bated breath. You're like, man, like Theoden, it's probably going to be him. The moments he had with Éowyn and, right, she should rule in my stead, and I would have you smile again, and just these character moments that actually feel genuine. And here, I was literally, like, after the Galadriel Elrond kiss, like, I was watching, but my whole mind wasn't there. And so I was like, oh, character number 4 died. That's too bad, I guess. I didn't care.
Like, so many characters I just started calling red shirts. The messenger that Elrond sent for the dwarves, I was like, that's a red shirt. There's no way. The random elf
that actor
archer
kind of looked like Sauron in episode 1. I thought, like, I was like, same wig or something. I don't know. I just thought that when I saw him. I was like, what?
Man, there's so many just terrible decisions that add nothing to the show. And it's not just like, so I remember last episode, I didn't like really talk about how much, because it didn't really bother me in the moment, but in the week since, it like, the more I think about it, the more stupid it seems. That moment with Disa summoning bats, right? I just don't, what was the point of that? Because then you see in this episode, she's like just wielding a pickaxe, like just like Durin, just like any other dwarf. And I was just like, why didn't we just do this last time? If you're going to commit to this like almost druidic magic sense, why not commit to it? Why are we half-assing this?
And I don't know what they're like standing for. I think it's just to stop dwarves from mining into the deeps and getting killed. I don't know. Like, I don't know why. Let's go to the dwarven plot really fast, because that's a good segue. Like, and we'll come back to the elves. The dwarves, it seems so manufactured. This fact that, like, why would, with the Rings of Power, they are worn for a long time. Thror, Thorin's grandfather, and Thrain wore that same ring until Thrain had been captured at Dol Guldur in the Third Age by Sauron's forces, and then it was taken from the dwarf. Why would any dwarf in their right mind continue to wear that ring if they're literally throwing a rebellion against Durin for wearing it? Weird to me. What, like, I just, it feels so manufactured.
They don't care about that. Be real.
I know. Like, why, I guess, read the lore that you're adapting? It's crazy. Why would you ever do that? Oh, wait, it's called The Lord of the Rings? What is that? Oh, it frustrates me. It does frustrate me, I will say. Because, again, it's just little things that are easily fixed. And one of them is just, like, you can have problems in the Dwarven Kingdom. Particularly, I think this is when you bring in, like, we're dwarves, they're elves. We saw their wars in the First Age. We saw what happened to them. Do we want that to happen to us? Like, should we actually, like, let's have a genuine conversation. Should we march outside of our safe walls and get slaughtered by a bunch of orcs and Sauron? We're safe. Like, they could literally make that into some kind of conflict. But no,
they had a conflict in season 1 that they just haven't picked up again. Like, they were beefing in season 1, but they needed to make nice for season 2 so that they could get Mithril for this stupid Mithril plot that didn't end up going anywhere because Sauron just uses his blood, I guess. And so now they're like, oh, but the elves and dwarves are friends again. But now we need them to not help, so let's make them not friends again. By this like weird betrayal / like also I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on with is Durin the Third just one man just ruining everybody? Like is it like a one? How many people were trying to guard? He's like Narvi's like, oh, he just cut through all my people. I was like, yeah, but he's also one guy. Like could we spend, because you had like 3 giant divisions of dwarves out there, can we send just one back, or could we just let him be? What's one man in a pickaxe for, like, you know, while we're gone for the weekend? I mean,
right. And he's like an old dwarf too, and we've never seen him fight before. We've never seen.
The first weapon he picked up, he just had that axe and left the room. And I'm like, are we about to see this guy throw down? Of course not. We don't get to see cool things in the show. We just get to hear about him.
Yeah, no, it's I think that plot line is kind of dumb. And again, how dare we see a fulfilling like moment where the dwarves? I just think
how dare we see a reunion between like these two characters that they really want us to be invested in their friendship because they keep showing a bunch of scenes of it in season 1. How dare we enjoy that without it also being cheapened at the end with more manufactured conflict?
Yeah, especially if Durin had chosen, let's go help the elves and Elrond over, we'll deal with this problem next season. Like, we'll deal with Durin the Elder next season. We got to go help our boy.
I already know that they're going to go back to stop Durin and fail in stopping Durin, right? Like, I could just see the writing on the wall. This show is not that original, not that unpredictable.
Yeah.
So why
we know the Balrog?
Why even bother with that? How about we have characters make choices and live with their consequences? So,
and we know the Balrog is coming next episode based on the trailer. So the Fall of Moria is probably next episode. If the trailer's to be believed in that, it could be a vision, it could be something else entirely for sure. But we see Durin's Bane, or we see some Balrog coming. So. That's probably what I imagine is about to happen.
I could still think of so many better ways to do that than what they did.
And granted, again, that hasn't. I won't give them beef for that hat yet because that's what I assume based on the trailer. So I won't. I'm not sure, but based on what we see, it's probable.
Even still, Durin leaves with his dwarves, right? They died to the unending respawning orcs that just never. There's just always more orcs, I guess, regardless of how many get like. Just shellacked, but we don't get to see them all. We just have to assume that they're there. All right, they come back and they find like, you know, similar to the first scene when they're going into Moria and they're like, what's wrong with, like, where is everybody? And then boom, Durin's Bane, mass slaughter, a bunch of dwarves getting killed, the rest of them escaping. Like, even that is still better than I think what is actually going to happen. But well, whatever.
No, exactly. And I mean, yeah, like you said, it's how do we figure out we don't have dwarves we care about other than Durin, Disa, and
that's it.
Narvi, I guess, kind of.
No,
Narvi.
We don't care about Narvi.
But yeah, like, they need to figure out how do you write characters that people care about? How do you give them actually proper scenes that aren't boring, but that are engaging with what's going on and these character conflicts? It's really hard to do that. And I think people just take it for granted that every single scene in The Lord of the Rings is like that. That it's just like, even in the extended edition, it could be Gandalf talking to Aragorn and he fears you, Aragorn, and you're the heir of Numenor, and it's just like, I mean, you guys are just talking at night in a camp. Like, theoretically, this should be boring, but it never, ever is. It's awesome. It is awesome because they're talking about lore, talking about our characters, they're talking about the growth that we have seen. We care about these dudes, we care about them more now that we've seen that. Like, we see these moments, and I just never get them in Rings of Power. And somebody said on Twitter, too, it's like, we should hold Rings of Power and Lord of the Rings trilogy to the same standard. Because I know that was a discussion in Season 1. Well, I agree. By
the, how many episodes of Rings of Power, like, how much time on screen have we had at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've had 16 approximately 1 hour episodes.
I would even say we should hold Rings of Power to a higher.
That's more screen time than the extended edition. Like, what are we even talking about here?
Exactly. It's more money. It's more screen time. It's been 20 years to learn the lessons that Peter Jackson taught us in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Crazy stupid budget. Like, come on. What's exactly. If the bar is not the same, then where is the bar? What else do they need? What other handicaps are they begging for at this point? So it's
too bad because it's kind of a Lord of the Rings theme. Even is like, as time goes on, the things that were so easy to make in the forges of Gondolin become far harder to make in the forges of the Elven Smiths of the Third Age. And it's like this. It's literally this. It's like. You could never remake the Lord of the Rings trilogy based on what we have today. Somehow we got worse. And it's just like a theme out of Lord of the Rings itself. Kind of funny. But yeah, so I think Moria's rough. The dwarves are rough too because they looked good for a while in this season and then they did not. Again, that episode 5 is what.
Yeah, I mean they were looking good. They had an interesting plot line, but it just went too fast to into the hole, right? Like now, like, I would have loved it if they slow played it more. I would have loved it if we got to see more, just the slow like progression of greed instead of during the third simply just like overnight becoming like a tyrannical capitalist dictator, like, but
who's also like a crazy good warrior too.
Who can also just mow down a bunch of people off screen.
I mean, so if we go back, because the warrior thing's interesting. Gil-galad, like, again, crazy good warrior. Everybody's a crazy good warrior all of a sudden, including Elrond, who we're told is not a good warrior, but then he's out here bodying orcs left and right, and I'm like,
who told us that?
That he was bad?
Yeah.
Literally everybody. Adar did this episode. He was like, "You're a politician," or "You're what did he say?" He didn't say politician.
He said, "Your hands are better with scrolls than they are with blades." And Elrond's comeback was, "You've seen me with neither." So what do you know?
And in season one, he was like this more politician-y kind of guy.
Sure, but
and so I mean, it's fine that kind of came out of nowhere, but
I don't think it came out of nowhere because we saw him fighting earlier this season against Barrow-wights.
And he got bodied by a lot of them. Like, until they found the weapons, they were getting absolutely destroyed.
They all got bodied by them. But wasn't it Elrond that found the weapons too? I don't know. This is a whole thing. But this is not the point that to die on. I mean, not when there's so many others. No, my point to die on is the kiss.
The kiss is so bad. But this is just another hill. This is another, not a mountain to die on, but this is a little hill off to the side.
I want to be clear. For me, it's not just like, this one moment ruins ROP, right? Everything else doesn't matter. There's so many other huge problems at work in this episode. I talked about this a little bit earlier. No elf, except for Arondir, feels like an elf. All right? There's so many scenes where you could make it work. You can make them feel interesting. How about, like, especially in Eregion, with, like, leading up to the siege, so many times all these elves just look at each other like idiots, and they're just like, "What's going on?" And then they die. And so there's so many better ways to play this, where you have, like, maybe you have these elves like realize that something is wrong before the audience will, and then they still get bodied. I mean, that's totally fine if they get bodied by orcs. Again, they're outnumbered 10-1. Not that Adar's making it easy on himself, because at the start of this episode, there's like this huge bridge that you see in the background going up to the gate, but they still dam the river so that they could cross the battering ram Ravager thing to pound on the wall and not the gate.
Yeah.
And I went back and checked, because there was a scene where the bridge was broken. I was like, was that bridge broken when they started bombarding it? It wasn't. It wasn't. They could have continued the bombardment and just like brought the thing across the sides. But no, we needed the cool moment. We needed the stupid geological impossibility of throwing a bunch of small rocks at a mountain and then the mountain breaks for some reason.
Yeah. Well, and something else to do with the logic of the show. Yeah, the mountains crumbling was so dumb. But another thing that was dumb is how fast characters can travel, how fast they can walk. So Frodo, people have put this together of like how far did Frodo and Sam walk from the Shire to Mordor? Now Pelargir to Eregion is not obviously the same, but it's close-ish. It's close-ish, right? Pelargir is more south and a little bit west than Mordor, and Eregion is closer. So let's put it at about let's put it less. So this source that I'm seeing here places the Shire to Mordor at about 1,700 or 1,700 miles, or 2,765 kilometers. Now, Royan, let's say it's 1,400 miles. Let's see, 1,400 miles, maybe like 2,300 kilometers. Is that fast? That could we walk that in like a month?
Maybe.
Could we walk that in like a month?
Well, it depends what you're walking over, right? So 14.
Let's say it's mountain terrain. It's not a straight line. It's mountain terrain. It's forests. It's streams and rivers. So there's going to be some bridges. There's going to be some crossing and going.
All right. So
and I will say
1,400 miles is like from near the bottom of Florida into upstate New York. So it is a crazy long way, but again, with all the terrain and stuff like that, because that's what really gets you, right? If you were just jogging across an open plain forever, maybe. But, yeah.
Yeah. And so Arondir walked that.
It's not just Arondir. It's all that entire Orcish army. And it took them, and they got the whole distance there before anybody could pay attention to it, I guess. Also, at the same time, Elrond has gone back and forth from, across Eriador like 5 times at this point. So Arondir is not the one in trouble right here, because Elrond he left from Lindon with Galadriel and the random elves, got almost all the way, right? Mm-hmm. Then Galadriel got captured. Elrond went back all the way, and remember they couldn't take the direct route; they had to take this weird south and U-shaped route or whatever. They had to take an alternate route because of the bridge being out, I guess.
Yeah, but even then, Galadriel scales the wall, no problem. Ends up right next to Celebrimbor. It's like, what?
Well, she took the old dwarven tunnels, man. Didn't you hear?
Oh,
the old dwarven.
Sorry,
not mentioned at any point prior to this moment, but
yeah, I must have missed that in my stupor from the kiss.
But so Elrond goes almost all the way to Regan, then back to Lindon to argue with Gil-galad, goes all the way back to Regan, goes then farther to get to Khazad-dûm, and then back to Regan.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's talk about the Wendy's manager for a second.
Oh my gosh.
He is the worst.
He's literally the worst character in the show.
Worst. He gets to a place where it's time for him to command all this kind of stuff. Dude, it's your moment.
Spectator.
It's your armies.
Spectator sport, bro.
Spectator. This is the manager that's like, all right, man, you've been talking a big game. You've been working here 10 years. Time to show us what you know. And he's like, actually, I think I'm going to have your team lead do it. And then it's like, what? You are going to have Elrond be the commander? He outranks you all of a sudden for this one battle until you're around, and then he doesn't, but you're not going to lead the battle. Dude, who are you? What? Gil-galad sucks. He sucks.
He's so bad. I mean,
he's so bad.
Okay, legitimately, this show has given us zero reason for Gil-galad to like Gil-galad. In every scene, he's trashing on somebody, right? In every scene, he's making essentially a bad decision or just being mean about a good decision. And
exactly.
And like he just continues. It just goes on and on and on and on. And then at the 11th hour, the show's like, no way, he's cool, guys. Look, we gave him a spear. I was like, where was this? Why couldn't he have been cool? And I broke out laughing in the moment where all the elves are there. They're on their horses, and I was like, oh, Pelennor fielding this right now? Are we about to get a redeeming Gil-galad moment? He just nods at Elrond. Just a single nod. And then Elrond takes off and he stands there. And I'm like, bro, the bar was on the floor. And you slipped over it. Like, what's going on? I needed anything out of you, and I gained nothing. But then at the end, don't worry, guys. He's there to look cool and lose. So there's
3 orcs, which in like a cool way or whatever it was. 3
and the giant. Don't forget the hill giant.
Yeah, that's true. And then, but then like Arondir still comes in and outclasses him. I'm like, Arondir's consistent.
Arondir is consistently
he's not flashy
the best.
all the time, but yeah, he's just consistently the best. He's the best warrior. He's the best character. Like he's the best.
Best actor, best character, best elf. But none of the elves feel like elves except for Arondir. All of them feel stupid. None of them feel like special, right? It's like the only thing that's interesting about them is they've got pointy ears. That's it.
Yep.
And sometimes pretty close.
That's it.
But other than that, they're exactly the same as everybody else. And I don't know about y'all, but every time we see or read about an elf on screen or on page with another human or even a hobbit or anybody, they always feel just a little bit different. And, you know, we can see it. Peter Jackson did it, right? She showed elves getting bodied but still acting like super cool. Granted, it was an addition. It was not it was not lore friendly. But him throwing the elves into the battle at Helm's Deep made it so cool. And you feel the grief and the dread as these like literally undying people lay down their lives in battle. And here we have what should be a great tragedy, right? All of these elves, after so many years of relative peace, right, are just getting slaughtered. Not just by the orcs, but by the raining fire and their city crumbling around them. But you don't feel any of that. You don't feel the impact. Yeah. And that was really disappointing.
It is, and it's as if it's like, how did you guys win a war against Morgoth? Like, how did this happen? You guys should have been at the peak of your strength. In the Lord of the Rings, they say no one is equal to Gil-galad and Elendil, so no one could really best Sauron in combat these days. If he got the ring, there's no Elendil anymore. There's no Sauron.
Well, that's the other thing. They
leave Galadriel out of that.
Everyone keeps overestimating Sauron, dude. All he's done so far is gaslight Celebrimbor and then two different elves. And I guess there was a moment where he was just like taking over minds of elves. That was so weird. And they all stab each other. I literally wrote my notes. What was the plan if they had an odd number of guards surrounding you? Like,
do one of those like pistols where everybody like you have 3 people pointing 2 pistols at each other. I don't know. That was my last big criticism for this episode. Other than the orc families and stuff, that they're all, whatever. They were so humanized, now they're just so bad, whatever. I've complained about that enough. But Sauron's magic, it used to be, it was interesting in the illusionary aspect, and now I don't like it, because when it looked like he like force choked that dude, but you're right, he took over their minds, but it looked like, I'm like, what do you do?
There's better ways to play this too. You want to do illusionary magic? Like, how about all these elves start to fight him. He like cuts all the lights from the room, and all the different warriors feel like they're attacking him, but in reality they're attacking each other, right? Like, there's so many better ways to do this magic of this deceiver character. But
I kind of and you can go almost based on like what character is he playing. If he's Anatar, he's got the illusionary stuff, and if you can kind of establish that. You need to build that into the show though. But in the book, in my mind, he's got 3 types of pretty much like skill, and he's really good at these 3 things, and that's mostly he's really good at like crafting. He can make magical objects. He literally stands up Barad-dûr based on magic. The tower is too tall, and so it literally couldn't stay in the sky unless he was supporting it with magic, and so that is sick. His crafting ability is unparalleled. And then you've got, after that, his illusionary deception magic. Again, kind of unparalleled. We don't really see people do that kind of stuff. We see Saruman play with kind of breaking the mind of Theoden, stuff like that. interesting, right? Good Sauron thing. And then after that, he's a good warrior. He is a good fighter with the right armor, with the right weapons, because it still took Gil-galad and Elendil to take him down. But we do see him get bodied by a literal dog in the Silmarillion, by Huon, right?
To be fair,
he's a werewolf at the time.
Huon is the bestest of boys. All right, I don't think we could say like he literally got bested by. He got bested by Huon. Anyone would.
Yeah, anyone. Yeah. He was like pinned to the ground as this werewolf by the dog, by Huon, and so it's like he was a superb crafter, literally unparalleled, except by maybe the Valar themselves. And then it's like really good at illusionary magic, almost if not totally unparalleled. And then warrior. There were definitely better warriors than him in Middle-earth. And so you give him kind of those talents to where if he did pick up a sword in this scene, he still would have beat all of them. Because based on like his power scaling, I guess, in the books, he still would have beat all of them 1v7. But he's not like, again, Elendil Gil-galad in there, he wouldn't have won. We need to start seeing that, because having a character as powerful as Sauron on screen. And honestly, this is kind of the stranger in Gandalf, too. You need to kind of define, do they have hard magic? Do they have soft magic? What are we playing with here? Is it illusionary, or is it force choking people and like using the force to turn each other, and like, or even like blood bending from like Avatar? That's where it's just like, I'm going to control you and make you stab. Like, what do you do?
It's not even just the characters. It's also the weapons. Because during the Third Ring, Confus Rodah his son across the throne room.
It's true.
So there's really no limits, which means that there's really no stakes. And even if it was limitless, it's still like, I don't know. It's just, none of it really works very well if you start to pick it apart more. But again, I'm fast forwarding through the episode again. I gotta say, there are things in the show, like it's close. It could be good, right? If you cut out stupid decisions, if you cut out a lot of cringe moments, you could make a passable show in here. Like, it looks gorgeous. You can't. All the armor is great. Most of the like camera work is really good. There are people that care about this show. It's just none of them are writing, and that sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And I was gonna say, like, again, we're still waiting on that super cut for when enough seasons come out of the best of content and the good edits of maybe what this show's potential could have been amounted to. But we'll see if that ever happens. Like you say, you're speeding through it, and it's just like, you're not hearing the dialogue and all that kind of stuff. Like you say, it's the writing. It's the stuff that really matters. I can play old video games and not worry as much about the graphics in most cases, and love the story if the story and the gameplay is good. I don't need all this flashy stuff. It feels like I'm being deceived, right? It feels like Anatar to some degree, where it's like, oh, the show's telling me everything's good. The show's showing me a lot of cool, pretty visuals. But in my heart, I know it is not. In my heart, I know most of the time, the writers, man, they need to reread Lord of the Rings, or pick it up for the first time, listen to the audiobook, watch YouTube videos, look at a Wikipedia, go Google who's
Tolkien
Sauron.
Gateway, dude.
Like,
Tolkien Gateway.
Tolkien Gateway! Yes, please! Yes, please. They need to do something. I'm not saying they need to know everything, and I'm not saying that the show has to be the biggest fan service out there or anything like that, and I'm not just trying to be an upset fanboy. I'm just trying to be like, this could be good. And it could have been. It really could have been. But instead, it's our Witcher series for Lord of the Rings. It's our Acolyte for Star Wars, right? It's our show that's just like, man, you had such a cool IP and you just trash. What is this?
Dude, there's so many decisions that are so dumb, right? So, we'll just say the kiss was dumb, right? The kiss was dumb. Mm-hmm. It was forced. It didn't need to happen. Like, he could have easily given her an affectionate hug and still handed it into her hand. Like,
that's what I said on Twitter. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I was like, you could give her a hug, like, whatever. He could. I mean, if she wasn't bound in that way, which is a choreography issue, right? You could do this in a different way. If her hands weren't bound, he could have taken a knee, right? Let's say they were bound in front of her, taken a knee, kissed her finger, right? Very Pippin Denethor-esque, and then as he grips her hand, boom, you place it in her hand.
Easy.
Oh.
So many ways. Easy. This could have been done easily, but it wasn't because they didn't think that far ahead. They wanted the shock value kiss that's going to mean nothing because these characters can't end up together. And and
it's going to be so weird when they introduce Celebrian, if they ever do.
Or Celeborn.
Yeah.
But even,
I mean,
okay, you know, Lord of the Rings lore aside, and I do think that we've nailed that point at this point. Everybody understands where we're coming from. That there's so many better ways they could do it by just looking at the lore. They don't. All right, but even without that, put that away. Right. Mm-hmm. The show's not good because none of the characters are consistent to themselves. Elrond's supposed to be this rational force on the other side of Galadriel's like arrogant and impulsiveness, right? So tell me why this guy pins an orc onto a catapult and then launches it at his own city for a meme, bro. Just to flex on this guy, like, and then they further it. They double down on the stupidity. They're like, hey, you know, we know that you've been seeing all these rocks just absolutely slaughter people, but don't worry, bro. Elrond took 0 time to aim this, but it's just luckily going to batter into the wall and not do any damage at all. Like, don't worry, guys. It's not a big deal.
I didn't even think of that.
Elrond is like, you know, this ring controls you. You can't, like, you know, it's too dangerous. We can't get this into the hands of the enemies at any cost. Anyways, I'm going into battle that I might die. I'm bringing it with.
I'm going to wear it around my neck. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're right. I think they're trying to make Elrond kind of like he's giving into his edgy a little bit more like.
Oh, you want to do that storyline? That sounds cool.
Crazy,
show it.
Yeah.
Zero
Exactly.
Elrond scenes to this point have shown him being anything
yeah.
but this character that they want, where it's like this rational thinker who's willing to do something that's like unpopular if he thinks it's for the good of everybody, right? Like he's willing to tell, to argue with Círdan, like, you know, throw these rings out. Like if it dooms us, it dooms us. But if I know that if the enemy gets it, it dooms us. So where that Elrond go? By the way, he's been missing. So I don't know.
For no reason.
I don't know what's going on. Galadriel is just springboarding between petulant child that, you know, gets bodied in every fight and stalwart character that everyone loves and like looks up to. But then in the next scene, they're going to be talking smack about her again. So what is it?
Yep.
So her conversation with Celebrimbor just happened to sway all these random 6 guards that literally moments before were like, no, we're not doing what you say. Anatar's the Lord of Eregion right now.
Oh, the writing. It's just I don't
like if you want to make
man.
Galadriel a cool girl bossy, like, you know, lead character, I'm into it. Let's actually do it though, right? Like let's show her being cool. Let's show her making good decisions. Let's show her being a consistent character. We've got none of those things. So I can't even take your intentions at face value because you've had so many chances to show me what you want to show and I'm not seeing it.
Yep.
But you know what I'm seeing?
Yeah, what?
I'm seeing a girl make out with her. I'm seeing a woman, a full elven woman, the second oldest character in this show, and like just making out with her son-in-law. Like what's And I don't understand, right? So many things are not explained just so that they could do these things, right? And then later they're going to explain it and we're going to realize that it was dumb and they're going to pretend like it wasn't, right? At some point, because they mentioned, apparently you corrected me on this earlier, they mentioned that Celeborn is like, she thinks he's dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
she was talking to Theo. I thought it was she was talking to Theo about it. Yep, in season 1.
And so that's like canon, right? She thinks her husband is dead. All right, so she thinks that she's like kissing Elrond or whatever, right? Yeah, Celeborn comes back on the show. She realizes this is my true love. Like Elrond, sorry, that wasn't my thing. And then later, Elrond is gonna see Galadriel's daughter and go, nah, that's what I want. And nobody's going to bat an eye at that. No one's going to go, hey, listen, bud,
that's weird.
I know that, like, you had the hots for Galadriel back in the day. What's going on, boss?
Yeah. Oh man, dude, it's just
also not even Adar can be consistent because this entire season he's like, I'm fighting for the Uruk. I'm fighting for these orcs to have a place to live. All right, I'm fighting against Sauron because I want them to live. And Galadriel's like, all right, bet we'll help you kill Sauron. Just don't kill all the other elves in Eregion. And he's like, no, I wanna. And then in this episode, all the orcs are dying while they're trying to kill all the orcs of Eregion. And the orcs are like, hey, maybe we should stop trying to kill all the orcs of Eregion and actually focus on Sauron. No, I don't want to.
Yep. No, it's, Oh, yeah, send in Damrod the Troll. He'll kill some of them, but whatever.
Also, I love how one troll was that was his trump card. He's got like 19 trebuchets, but he's got one troll. Because the siege needs to end today for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like the Celeborn Galadriel thing, that's gonna be a whole issue, and I mean,
I love how they were able to perfectly drop the mountain into the river to dam the river, but not able to perfectly drop the mountain into the city to flatten the city that they're trying to murder.
Those rocks were stable.
This is the example of They see a vision and they just jump into it, right? They don't do any thinking. They don't do any prep work. They don't do any foundational pre-work for it. They just go, we're doing this right now. And I really feel like the reason why that happens is because there's 6 writers every season for 8 episodes.
Yeah.
I think it's as simple as
exactly. It seems like there's not enough time to develop the characters, but there is. There's 8 hours a season. Peter Jackson's trilogy is long, granted, but it's still like
within the first 2 movies, you can hit approximately 8 hours, right? And think about how much characters change over those 8 hours, and you don't even have the excuse of being like, well, we're telling a whole bunch of storylines. All of these guys are in the same place right now. Like everyone's in Eregion or the surrounding areas, with the exception of like Isildur and Elendil. Like all of our main characters are here. They're not interacting with each other, though, because that would be too interesting.
I was thinking about Isildur earlier, too. I'm glad you mentioned it, because he was traveling with Arondir, but Arondir's here now, and he's not. And Arondir found that body. He didn't. Where's Isildur?
I think Isildur's still with the Ent. Still with the Ent and the Entwife, right?
Oh. Well, I think he went back to Pelargir probably with those people, but I have no... They just were like, see ya, Isildur. Bye-bye. We need Arondir up here so he can fight Adar. Okay. And I like how, like, Arondir helped him and this random, like, woman, right, or whatever, right? And did all that, but Isildur couldn't return the favor? Isildur, unless he was like, hey, he's up, unless something happens in episode 8 where the Númenóreans do come over, but I doubt that because that'd be so crazy. That'd be such a out of left field thing. No, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. It's dumb as an adaptation. It's dumb as a type of story in and of itself, intrinsically. We got one more episode, and then final season review, and then we get a break, so I'm very thankful that it's almost done. Gonna keep watching it, because here's why. And I released a video earlier, I think this year, on why I'm doing this to myself. I'm doing this because everybody's watching Rings of Power, everybody's talking about it, everybody's getting into Lord of the Rings maybe from this. This is the new thing. And sure, is there a financial incentive, like I said in the video? Yeah, of course. But beyond that, right, it calls itself The Lord of the Rings. And if everybody who watched the show were those people that loved the show would have 100%. It would be right up there next to Peter Jackson's trilogy. It would be a perfect piece of media according to all critics, because the only critics watching it are those who love it. I don't love this show. And in fact, again, I continue to wish it gets canceled so that maybe we get better Second Age material at some point. But I will continue to watch it because it doesn't deserve to be 100%. Of course not. And again, it calls itself Rings of Power. And again, this is a gateway into Lord of the Rings for so many people, and it should, if that's going to be the case, it just should be closer to what it calls itself. Again, you can take your own adaptation and inspiration veerings into its... Peter Jackson did, right? But there's a way to do it to keep the themes of the characters and of Tolkien and of the settings and the stories all there and present. Rings of Power has found a couple ways to do that a couple episodes ago. Like we said in episode 5. Great, right? Episode 5, season 2 was awesome. And now this one was just, like, I heard that, okay, this is the big battle one. Maybe it'll be cool. It's surprised supposed to be. This is the worst.
It's supposed to be.
This is the worst episode, though, of the season, if not the whole show.
It's not. It's not as bad. It is. It's not as bad as last episode. To me, for me, it's not.
for me, it runs over. It shouldn't. And I've made this point before, but it shouldn't call itself Lord of the Rings, and it's dumb that it does, because it's just like in Game of Thrones when Jon Snow got his first lightsaber and flew on the back of a dragon through the Death Star with Captain America, right? Because I imagine if that had happened in the show. It's like, dude, that is not anything. You're speaking gibberish. That is not Jon Snow. That's not what the Death Star is. That's not what a dragon does. Everything that you just said was wrong. And for me, that's what this is. It's like, why are you using the name Galadriel? This isn't who that is. This isn't even the character. We're not even talking the same language. And so for me, that's the most painful part. Now, Ryan, I think the fundamental difference between how you review the show, how I do, is I think I review it as like a Tolkien YouTuber, right? As a Tolkien guy. I think you review it as a lover of fiction and entertainment. So it makes sense that for you, it's like, this one was bad, but maybe not the worst. For me, why does it call itself Lord of the Rings? Again, this is Wheel of Time meets Star Trek for me. It's like, what are we even doing here? So yeah, I totally get what you mean, but it's just insulting beyond insulting. The fact that one of my heroes, I remember 5th grade, I did a project on Tolkien for being like one of my heroes and stuff. 5th grade. And I've looked up to these works my whole life, and it's just made me who I am. And so it's just so insulting to me. It's so insulting. And I think that's what I struggle with.
Yeah.
I think that's what gets me. So
I think it's a totally fair position to have. I think I do absolutely hate the things that they've done with this lore, but it's not just because they're not doing the lore, but because they can't even come up with anything that's better. They can't even come up with anything that's good. That's what really kills me, right? If you want to make a change from the lore to try to have an impactful moment that works better on screen than it would in the book, I think that's valid. I think that's fair, and I think that you deserve your shot to do
right
that.
There.
But if you
Peter Jackson did.
Yeah, Peter Jackson did a lot of times. And what kills me is it's this moment, because I understand you didn't mean it this way, but for me, that for a moment there, I want to make it very clear that I care a lot about the Lord of the Rings story. But to me, like, this kiss of these two elven characters is incredibly insulting, but it's still not as insulting as Tom Bombadil was last episode to me. And it's two symptoms of the same problem, right? It's these people that are like, we need this name character so that we can lock into the fans of this IP, right? But we don't like what the character would do in this moment, so we're just going to change it. We're just going to toss it out the window. Now, we don't know as much about the personalities of Elrond and Galadriel as we do, but we know a lot about the personality of Tom Bombadil because he makes it incredibly apparent. We make some assumptions based on Elrond, but they're really old, and I could realistically see them changing somewhat over the times. But man, I
think with me, it's like there's like almost 3 categories of character deception or like problems. You have your character adaptation, that is how they are in the books, that's how their personality is, and then you have this like really large gray zone of, it's like, that's not quite how they are. It's kind of weird. It's different, but maybe you'll tie it in the back end. Maybe Tom Bombadil will learn how to be joyous and happy and whatever it is. That's kind of like, it's not great. It still leans towards the red, but in my mind, he fits pretty well into like the gray area of like, I don't know what you're doing with this character right now, and it's really not good. And it's not him, but I wonder if this is the beginning of his character arc that makes him become him, I guess. Like, same with kind of Gandalf, to be honest. It's like, what? And then there's the red zone. Then there's the red zone of like, Galadriel and Elrond would not kiss. There's like no reason for them to. They are an entire separate, this isn't them. Right. And so maybe we can put Tom into the red too. But for me, that's why I haven't gotten as insulted, is like there's like 3 tiers of it almost. But
for me,
sorry,
I feel like Tom Bombadil deserves to be in the red that you're describing here, simply because Tom Bombadil as a character represents such an important theme in Tolkien's work. Tom Bombadil is this uncorruptible spirit of like freedom and just freedom from the stress of everything that's going on. Simple joy in the natural world around you. And he cares about people. It's not like he's immune to conflict. He shows up. He saves the Fellowship, but he did so without like breaking a sweat. It's nothing to him because he's almost outside the story. And you may think to yourself like, oh well, maybe that makes him kind of lame to put him into this scenario, into some of these scenes. But you have to understand what he means to the people that meet him. They see him and they're reminded that this is what we could be. This is almost what we should be, some would argue, if we didn't have all these problems. So we got to go deal with these problems.
No, that's fair. And earlier I know like you're very much a fan of the lore, but I feel like that's where our criticisms kind of come from is you've always looked at it more from the internal aspects, like why would Galadriel swim across an ocean? And I'm just like, why was she being sent to Valinor? Like I obviously, I always brought up the ocean bit too, but almost that's, I think those are really two great ways to look at a show. Is one from internal logic, how does it function as just a piece of, and I try to apply that lens to my own critiques as much as I can, but with this show, I'll never be able to just do that because of everything that Tolkien has done for me. I'll never not be biased because that's how the source material is for me. I think about reading the Silmarillion or the Second Age, and I think back to like college years and how much all that time meant to me, and how much reading those stories of Galadriel and the sack of Rhegion and how terrible all that was, and them fighting the war against Sauron. The first time I discovered all this kind of lore, how important that was to me, and getting back into it or making a video about that stuff. And it's just like, I just know what it could be because it's what it once was for me when I first read it. And sure, there's nostalgia and all this kind of stuff. Absolutely. But I'm a Tolkien channel. I'm not a review channel at the end of the day. And so I think that's what I'm meant to do. I think that's actually the perspective I'm meant to bring, right? If you want just a casual viewer's review, then there are plenty of those on YouTube that review everything, and Rings of Power happens to be one of those things. But for me, after Rings of Power is done, I'm done reviewing things until Tales of the Shire and War of the Rohirrim.
Which I look forward to more every day, because
exactly,
can't be this bad, right?
Exactly. So it cannot be this bad, right? That's what we're hoping. So for me, to kind of wrap it all up, I'm giving this, I can't really decide, like a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10. Again, by far the lowest rating that I've given any episode in either season. I think the lowest I went in season 2 was like a 3 out of 10. I think for the overall season, it was like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. But I think the lowest episode was like a 3. This one was so insulting to me that honestly, it's like, for any Tolkien fan that isn't just reviewing the shows like I am, and that's why I'm putting myself through this, don't watch it. Don't watch it. Don't give Amazon your money. Go play Lord of the Rings Online or Battle of Middle Earth, or rewatch Peter Jackson's, or read the books, listen to audiobooks. But if you want an adaptation, there's just so much better use of your time. But thank you for listening, of course. Ryan, where would you be at?
I think I'm back with the 4 out of 10, but it's mostly because I realistically can't put it worse than last episode. But man, these last two are definitely the worst in the season, and they're some of the worst in the show. When I try to think back to it, I mean, maybe I don't remember a lot of. I almost never remember my rankings, even the day after I put them out here in this. But like, it was definitely. I got to be honest. I was kind of looking forward to getting into seeing the episode because I wanted to see what was happening. This is the penultimate episode, and in modern day TV, this is the big one. This is the one that this is the big climax, because next episode they're going to finish some storylines and set up the next ones. But this is the one where everything happens, and man, did it fall right on its face, almost right out the gate, and it never really covered from that moment. And all the things that I like in this moment, they're not the ones I remember, right? When I go to bed and I wake up tomorrow, if I find myself remembering the show, I'm going to remember the kiss. I'm going to remember Elrond launching a dead orc and a bunch of rocks at his own people. I'm going to remember this crazy forced dumb moment where Celebrimbor throws this elven woman from the wall and she dies.
It's so
and
dumb.
Not a single other person in the scene is like, maybe we should do something about that. No one's mad. No one cares.
They're like, wow, that's unfortunate.
They're like, that was really bad.
Did that.
And it's going to kill me because every time I think about it more and more, it's like every single one of these elves could live forever, which is why their deaths are so impactful. Yeah. And not a single one of these elves on screen cares about that at all.
Yep.
They show the
Valar will make them new bodies.
They show no of the remorse, no of like the grief, the anguish. It's just elves die and they don't even think about it. Elves feel suffering and they're like, man, that's tough. Anyways, let me go do another stupid thing right now because they're all dumb. Yeah. I don't understand why all the elves are dumb. It makes me really sad because Gil-galad is a character that I love so much from the lore. He's the only like guy with a named spear almost in fiction. There's a couple out there, he's an important elven king in some of the most important times after the First Age, right? And it's just it kills me every time he's on screen. I hate this character so much, and that really depresses me. So it's like and I can't sit here and think about it like and be like, well, maybe next episode will be better because I know it won't. It won't because I know what's waiting for me in 7 days. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to turn on this show, and right there in my face is going to be the stupid Harfoot plot. And that is the worst part about this episode, my friend Yoyston. It's not the kiss, it's not anything else. It's that they did no Harfoot stuff and they still couldn't make it happen. They still couldn't make the episode enjoyable, which means that next episode is going to be just awful. But I will pose one last question to you, Yoyston. Will they mount, what's the name of this actor? 1 second. Charles Edwards as Lord Celebrimbor's torso on a banner, or are they cowards?
From what I have heard, I don't think they will go that far.
Cowards,
but
cowards.
But who knows? Who knows? It's gonna be.
They do so many stupid things for shock value, except for the one that's actually shocking.
Yeah. Gosh, the fact that he went back to face Sauron after he tried to escape. And then gave this like cheesy monologue to Galadriel and was like, all right, I'm going to go back to Anatar now.
I like how he's like, I will slow him down. With what, bro?
With my other thumb that I have not yet cut off. So, yep. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, really appreciate it. Sorry that it was such a downer, and I hope I articulated my thoughts well. It was a rough one. So who knows? Maybe next week will be better. Go on with that hope, that optimism. Everybody go do something with Tolkien that we love here. Book, Latro, whatever it is, whatever adaptation. Could even be, Lord of the Rings Conquest, and you're just doing some Archer capture of the ring, like Royan and his brother did. So it could be any of that. So let's go remind ourselves of how great Middle-earth actually is. So thanks to our Valor Tier patrons and YouTube members. Thanks to our newest one, right? Comic Nut 64, Brian Hunley, Peter Sheppard, John Hume, Rhys Jenkins, Arthur Merlin, Theodore, Andrew Carlisle, and Zoomi. Royan, thanks for joining me in this rant session. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. And thank you all so much for watching and joining us on this adventure. Until the next one.